For 130 years, you have been told a ghost story. You've been told about a man in a top hat and a velvet cape, a monster who vanished in the London fog. That is the Varnish. And in Case File 71, we don't look at the fog, we look at the architecture. September 30th, 1888, the double event. 2 women murdered in less than an hour. The police were swarming, the streets were blocked, and yet the killer didn't just escape. He stopped to write a message on a wall. Historians call it a mystery. I call it point 4, tactical deflection. Tonight, or rather today, we strip away a myth and look at the logic of a professional. Okay. Point 1 and 2, the missing tool and evidence of absence. So let's audit the escape. After the murder of Catherine Eddowes in Myers Square, the killer, that is Jack the Ripper, is covered in blood. He is in a high security corner area. Logic dictates he should be running. Instead, he travels 1,500 feet to Goulston Street. Why? Again, why? Look at point 2, evidence of absence. He didn't have a change of clothes. He didn't have a laboratory. But he had a missing tool, camouflage. The media wants you to see a doctor or a prince. But a doctor in a top hat covered in blood is a target. A butcher or meat carver in a leather apron carrying a blood-stained rag is invisible. In 1888 Whitechapel, blood was the uniform of the trade. By dropping a piece of Eddowes' apron in a doorway, he wasn't leaving a clue. He was disposing of the only evidence that didn't fit his professional camouflage. The nuclear logic. The Juwes statement. Point 4. Now we get to the core. Above the bloody piece of apron chalked on a black brick wall were the words, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Again, please, let me restate that. Above the bloody piece of apron chalked on a black brick wall were the words, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Historians argue about the spelling of the word Jews, Juwes. They argue about Freemasons. They are blinded by the Varnish. Let's apply logic, shall we? Look at the grammar. A double negative will not for nothing. In the dialect of the East End, a double negative is an empathetic positive. Again, in the dialect of the East End, a double negative is an empathetic positive. It doesn't mean they won't be blamed. Again, it doesn't mean they won't be blamed. It means the Jews are the men who will be blamed for everything. Again, it means the Jews are the men who will be blamed for everything. The killer wasn't a poet. He was a tactician. He knew that writing an anti-Semitic slur in a Jewish neighborhood would trigger an immediate social riot. He knew the police would be forced to focus on the Varnish of a potential race war instead of logic of the man with the meat cart. He didn't write it because he was Jewish. He wrote it to turn the neighborhood into a smokescreen. Point 3. The architecture of the act, the meat cart path. Let's audit the path, shall we? He kills in Myers Square, drops the apron in Goulston Street, and vanishes toward the Flower and Dean Street rookeries. Look at the architecture. This isn't the path of a man wandering in madness. This is a supply chain. He is moving toward the markets. He is moving toward places where a man with a knife and an apron belongs. Why the hour-long gap between the murder and the apron drop? Because he wasn't hiding, he was working. Again, he wasn't hiding, he was working. He likely used his meat cart to move the evidence. He used the infrastructure of the city to hide in plain sight. He wasn't a ghost, he was an operator who knew the police were looking for a monster while he was just another man starting his shift. Point 5. Human nature. Again, point 5. Human nature. Finally, the Dear Boss letters. The Jack the Ripper persona. This is the ultimate Varnish. Human nature tells us that a killer who is surgically precise and tactically silent doesn't spend his time writing, taunting letters to the press. The Ripper was a creation of the media. Again, the Ripper was a creation of the media. The real killer, the man we are auditing, was a man of high-functioning logic. He didn't want fame, he wanted neutralization. He killed. He used the Goulston Street wall to create a diversion, and he went home. He survived because he understood that if you give the public a monster to fear, they never see the man stand right in front of them. Conclusion? The Whitechapel murders aren't unsolved. Again, the Whitechapel murders are not unsolved. They are all unaudited. So when you strip away the top hats and the Masonic myths, you are left with a tactical predator who used radical tension as a weapon and meat carver as a fortress. History missed the water glass and they missed the meat cart. But Case Files 71 sees the truth. I'm nearing the end of my criminal investigations class. Case closed.